I've mentioned in the past that my least favourite block in Space Engineers is the hydrogen engine, but this was mainly down to how people use it rather than the actual block itself. However, the jump drive is also high on that list for a whole host of reasons I'm going to go over in this video. The jump drive is one of the few blocks in Space Engineers that doesn't fit the near future aesthetic the game is going for, and is one of a couple of blocks in Space Engineers that only exist for gameplay purposes. An example of this is the gravity generator. Whilst most of the other blocks in the game are ones that we could feasibly create in the next couple of years, the gravity generator exists purely to serve the gameplay purpose of giving you artificial gravity. Whilst we could technically do this by spinning a ship around fast enough to give you artificial gravity, it's there for convenience sake. The jump drive also exists to solve a problem, and that's without it, it would take a long time to reach planets. Around 5 hours to reach Mars and around 16 hours to reach the alien planet. Now this problem is caused by two factors. One is that the planets are far away, and two is the speed limit is low. Now, if the jump drive is a solution to this problem, why is that an issue to me? So, before we continue, I'd just like to say this is my opinion, and you are free to disagree with it. Just please don't be rude about it. Good? I don't think the jump drive is the correct solution to the problem of it taking too long to fly to planets. However, I do believe it's the best solution for now. I definitely would not ask this to be changed at the moment, but it's something to definitely think about for the future of the game. One of my main concerns is that the jump drive essentially skips space, and that it might as well not be there. And I worry that in the future, as we know that after the AI update, the developers are working on an exploration update, that any content they add to space will be pointless because all players will do will skip over space using the jump drive. I also think it'd be more fun and engaging to fly to planets, because currently you don't really fly to planets. You fly out of a planet, you jump to the next planet, and you fly back down. I think flying through space should be part of the gameplay loop of Space Engineers. As you know, it has space in the name. It's not called magically teleport to other planets engineers, is it? And I think finally the problem with the jump drive is that it should be a utility, not a crutch of the game. The jump drive is currently required to get to other planets, and it's pretty much the only endgame block. Now, whilst this is more of a progression issue, and hence why I don't want it to be changed at the moment, I think it's bad that most of the content of the game is locked behind this single block. And additionally, that planets are an endgame thing, whereas I think they should be part of the normal gameplay loop as well. So, if the jump drive didn't exist in its current form, we would need a new solution to the problem that it takes an unreasonably long time to fly between the planets. So as I said before, this problem is caused by two things. One is that the speed is low, and two, that planets are far away. So let's look at other solutions to those problems. Everyone, including Keen, wants to raise the speed limit, but we know for a multitude of reasons that this is difficult. Some of those reasons, which are relevant to this video now, are if you go too fast, you can phase through voxels such as planets and asteroids, and the more we raise the speed limit, the more difficult it becomes to both avoid spacefaring objects or slow down when landing on a planet. With these things in mind, whilst I prefer these speed limits to be overall raised, there have been a couple of suggestions I've seen for changes to be made instead of changing the overall speed limit. One of the main suggestions I've seen is that ships should move faster in space. So whilst you're on the planet, the speed limit is still 100 meters a second, but as soon as you exit gravity, you're able to move much faster. I've also seen suggestions about thrusters that you can put on your ships that only work in space, but when you activate them, they let you bypass the speed limit, and I don't like this idea. Currently, there are 3 different types of thrusters in Space Engineers, and each of them fill their own niche, whether it be different fuels or different environments. And I think if you were going to add more thrusters to Space Engineers, I'd want them to keep doing that and not have a thruster that you have to have in order to do that one specific purpose. Part of the issue as well with having a thruster that makes you go faster or just generally moving faster in space is that you have a very high chance to hit asteroids, as there's so many of them. And like I said, when you're moving at those speeds, it's very difficult to avoid them. So there are 2 solutions to this. The first suggestion I've seen is that when you're moving at these high speeds, the game turns off physics for your ship, so that it's impossible for you to hit asteroids and stuff. I know that the Super Cruise mod does this. It allows you to move really fast and removes the physics interactions between yourself and other things. And then when you get near a planet, it then turns off the Super Cruise drive and then you slow down. This is one potential solution. However, another possible solution, which I'll cover in more detail in the next section, would be to remove asteroids as they currently are and place them in certain locations, whether there's like an asteroid ring or asteroids spawn around planets, and when you get a certain distance away from planets they just disappear. That way you don't have the problem when you're travelling through space of the asteroids being an issue. I'm not so sure how I feel about the second one of those, but definitely having asteroids in a certain location would be a better solution in my opinion, but let me know what you guys think. However, even if you raise the speed limit overall and could just move faster through space, it still takes a long time to reach planets. At 1,000 meters per second, it would still take 1.5 hours to reach the alien planet, so maybe increasing the speed limit isn't the only solution we need. Okay, moving the planets. I've mentioned it before, so just to cover all my bases, let's say hypothetically, this is a different world. The old solar system is still there, but this is a completely different thing, alright? Good. I want to say first of all, I don't care about realism, I only care about gameplay. I want Space Engineers to be the most fun experience that it can be, and if that means smushing the planets right next to each other, that's what I want to do. And besides, if you cared about realism, you wouldn't like the jump drive, because the jump drive doesn't fit the setting that Space Engineers is in. Here's a custom solar system I created for my multiplayer server back in the summer. Basically what I did is I moved the planets close enough together so it'd only take a short amount of time to fly between them at 1,000 meters per second. I think it was about 10 to 15 minutes. And this is my main thought when it comes to this, multiplayer. There is absolutely no point of playing multiplayer if you never see another player. And I think the default solar system is way too big to facilitate that. I'm going to be honest, even at this distance, it is still way too big for a multiplayer environment. I get not everyone plays multiplayer, and that's why I suggested that the original solar system is left as it is, and single players can still play that. But the same argument can be said for any randomly generated game. If you're going to play multiplayer and you're just going to go a million miles away, you might as well be playing single player. Making the solar system smaller would give more chances for players to interact, not just in a hostile manner, but just like to visit each other, to trade and stuff. But currently the way it is, if you lived on Mars and I lived on Earth, I would absolutely never see you. And if you lived anywhere in between, unless I flew the exact straight line path, I would have no chance of finding you. And making the planet smaller and making the solar system smaller would drastically improve that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a solar system either. It could just be a planetary system where you have one planet in the middle and a couple of dwarf planets orbit this planet like moons. I've seen there are scenarios in the workshop that work like this, and that's kind of the idea I want to go for. And with that, well, like I said with the asteroids, rather than having asteroids everywhere, you just have the asteroids around, say, one of the planets as a ring, or you have the asteroids around all of the planets as a kind of asteroid belt surrounding them, and that's where you get like the end game resources. So most of the resources are on the main planets, with unique resources on each planet, and then all the end game resources are at the edge in the asteroid belt. Once again, this is me talking about progression, as I feel like the way the planets currently work needs to be reworked in order to facilitate better progression, but I've done a video on that in the past, so we won't dwell on that too much. So, with everything said, I think the ideal solution for me personally is somewhere in between having higher speeds and shorter distances between planets. But with that, what happens to the jump drive? Now, whilst the title of this video is Remove the Jump Drive from Space Engineers, I don't actually want to remove it. For starters, development time has already been spent on this, and it would just be an absolute waste to remove it just for the sake of rebalancing the game. So I think the jump drive could be changed in one or two ways, or maybe you could add a new block that does one of these functions. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I want the jump drive to be for utility use. One of these utilities could be in combat, where in combat you can use the jump drive to do short jumps around the battlefield. Players already use the jump drives like this anyway. This would be a good way to spice up combat, as the most advanced players have jump drives where they can jump behind you and then deal some damage. Or you can jump a short way away from the combat just to get your bearings and repair for a couple of seconds. Or alternatively, the jump drive is the actual end game tool. So you can fly to all the planets, you can get your resources, etc. You can progress through the game as you would, and one of the last blocks you unlock is the jump drive, and it serves the exclusive purpose to be an end game block that allows you to skip that travel time that was previously there. So we're saying the travel time is somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes or whatever, and this is the last thing you unlock that makes traveling around the map that much easier. So, what do you guys think? Obviously, you're allowed to disagree with me, just try to be constructive with your feedback. And do you have any other suggestions that you'd like to make about the game? Why don't you leave a comment below? And as always, like and subscribe for more Space Engineers content.